Hi students, today we are going to talk about one of the contemporary film theories, that is apparatus theory. Apparatus theory is derived or highly influenced by the Marxist film theory, psychoanalysis, and one of the key proponents of apparatus film theory is Jean-Louis Baudry. As the name suggests itself, apparatus is the equipment, technical equipment we use for cinema production, that is the camera, the editing technique, and the theater setup. For example, all these techniques helps in making cinema more real than real. That is, it helps us, being immersed in the cinema world or the subject it talks about. For example, if you are watching a movie inside a theater, the setup of the theater itself, for example, the darkness, the silence inside the theater, the sound mechanisms, the lighting, and all those things helps a lot in making it more real. So you will be like more immersed inside a theater if you are watching a movie. You can see the difference too. For example, if you are watching a movie on your television, the experience is different. For sometimes, for example, these days people say that the theatrical experience, you should go and watch the movie inside the theater even if you have this OTT subscription. For example, the technical setup inside the theater itself helping a lot in making it more immersive. So sometimes you don't be having the enough technical equipments which is compatible with the making of the film with you inside your home. For example, when you watch one of the movies like KGF or the Bahubali, you have to experience, or any Marvel movies, you have to experience it from the theater itself. I'm coming back to the exact definition or the idea behind this apparatus theory. Apparatus theory is, it explains how this technical equipments helping in making the cinema more real and immersive, and thus it's helping in reinforcing the dominant ideologies or the ideologies the cinema is talking about. For example, the cinema is talking about any dominant ideology, for example, corporatization or privatization or patriarchy. If you're watching it inside a theater, or if you're watching it, it's not a kind of non-existing world for you. It is like you're being immersed, more and more immersed inside the movie. So that is the basic idea of apparatus theory. So I'm just going to the definition of apparatus theory. Apparatus theory explores how the ideological setup of cinema, that is the camera, the projection, editing, and viewing environment. When it comes to viewing environment, of course, the example is theater. One of the examples is theater. How these technological setup contributes the construction of meaning and the reinforcement of dominant ideologies. So when it comes to dominant ideologies, it can be anything. It can be privatization, it can be corporatization, it can be liberalization, it can be patriarchy, or it can be anything, any dominant ideologies. For example, that's how a cinema, the content, which is creative, which is imaginary, which is a fiction, a part of fiction. But when you watch it as a motion picture inside a theater, it makes us more real. For example, even if you watch a fantasy movie, you will be like highly immersed inside the movie, and you think that all these fantasy, the idea of this multiverse, when you're watching a Marvel movie, you think it or perceive it as more real. So here, how apparatus theory talks about how this technical, equipments or the technical side of this movies or cinema construction helping the cinema to perceive it as more real than the real thing. Okay, got it. So we are going to the next explanation. This theory completely focuses on how the film functions as part of a larger ideological apparatus, shaping and controlling spectators' perception and ideologies. Central to apparatus theory is the idea that cinema is not just a passive medium, but a machine that constructs reality for its audience. So here the theory perceives the audience as passive, not as active. Okay, and to make the audience, as to make a passive audience, this cinema making, the editing techniques, the lighting, the camera equipments, or the theatrical experience, it helps a lot, to make it more immersive and real. So you don't see a kind of screen or technical setup or the production setup, behind the cinema or behind the scenes. For you, it's a story. It's a story that's happening. You are inside the story sometimes if it's like very immersive, you may feel that you are experiencing all these things. Even it can be either, you experience it as a neighborhood story, or sometimes you replace the character as one of the characters inside the movie. So this is all about that. So this is what you call apparatus theory, and one of the key proponents of apparatus theory is Jean-Louis Baudry. We are going to the more explanation of this apparatus theory. This apparatus theory argues that films have the power to influence viewers' understanding of the world, often reinforcing dominant ideological positions. Apparatus theory suggests that cinema creates an illusion of reality that seems natural and unmediated, even though it's highly constructed and manipulative. So the same thing, cinema has the power to make the ideologies as more real. It is creating an illusion of reality, but this illusion of reality seems to be more natural and unmediated. Of course, cinema is a medium. There is a medium, but for us, when you watch the movie, when you are like more and more immersive inside, when you are watching a movie inside a theater, you see, it seems more as unmediated. You are inside the story, you are experiencing the whole emotional drama, or you are experiencing the whole situations. So it's more like you perceive it as an unmediated world. It's about, that is what this apparatus theory argues about. So this theory, already I talked about this theory. It is highly inspired or derived from the Marxist film theory, semiotics, and psychoanalytical theories, and it emerged during the 1970s. So the key thinkers of this theory, Jean-Louis Baudry, Christian Metz, and one of the indirect influencers of this theories, of course, Louis Althusser. It is highly inspired from Louis Althusser's ideological state of apparatus too. So here I am again going more and more deep into the concepts. We talked about certain technical terms or jargons in this theory. The first thing is like the apparatus. So the meaning of apparatus, or the apparatus, the word apparatus refers to the tools of filmmaking, for example camera, projector, but not just this equipment for using for the production of cinema, but of course this here the theatrical setup too, or the screening setup too. For example, the darkness inside the theater, the framing of the shot, and the editing techniques. When it comes to continuity editing, when you watch a movie, if you don't know anything about this editing techniques, for you it's a continuous thing. It's happening flowless. It's happening in a single stretch. For example, just like your life, it's happening on a continuous stretch. So you don't see the different shots, and all these shots are like matched up together, or brought together, pasted together. So these are like different shots of frames, in which the actors played or performed. But when it comes to this editing table, they are like putting all together to making it a story, to making it or more reality. They are like telling the story on the editorial board too. It's all like fragmented shots and frames, but when it comes to this editing, it becomes a whole stretched narration. So when you are like more immersed inside a theater, the whole silence inside the theater, the darkness of the theater, the sound systems, the sound mechanisms, lighting mechanisms, and of course this camera techniques, the editing techniques which makes it, and the background music too, of course the background music too, which makes it which makes you more immersive inside the movie. And that's how whatever the movie talks about, you are just consuming it as reality, real than the real experiences. So that's what all about this apparatus theory. So you have to remember what's the meaning of apparatus. It's very easy. The apparatus means the technical setup you are using for a film production, and of course for screening the movie too. That is the theatrical setup. So when it comes to more and more immersive, it makes it more real. It is more immersive. It seems like an unmediated construction of reality, or it's more of an, it's not, of course it's an illusion of reality. It's a constructed reality, but people perceive it as a unmediated world. So that's what is all about this apparatus theory. And if the technical mechanisms or the construction of the movie, if the creators of the movie make it more and more immersive, more and more real, then whatever they are talking about, the talking in the movie, the idea, the story, the narration, the ideologies they are talking about, people consume it as right sometimes. For example, the hero is like very patriarchal in the movie, and he's doing so many good things inside the movie, and at the end of the movie he is the one who wins the game, who wins the the struggles and all. Then for the audience, or for the people who watch the movie, they consume or they perceive masculinity as like more strong, or for example, when it comes to this our commercial movies here, of course hero is the masculine one, he is the one who takes care of the family. And sometimes, I'm not generalizing the whole idea, when it comes to certain movies, the hero is the one who is protecting the female character, his spouse or his mother or his sister or anybody, any female identity related to him. He is the one who is take care of the female identity. And when it comes to this female portrayal, usually we portray, sometimes we portray female characters, female as the ones who is taking care of the family, who is feeding her kids, who is taking care of the entire family, father, mother, parents, in-laws, kids and all. So the portrayal is in that way. So if the movie is like able to make it like more immersive and real, then of course some of the people may perceive it as this is the role of a man or woman in life. So for them, their ultimate goal will be, for a man it will be like he or she, he has to take care of his family. Whatever comes, he has to sacrifice everything for the family. He has to take care of everybody in the family when he crosses his 80s, 20s, 18s or 20s. So that's how the ideology is constructed through cinema. And when it comes to female too, sometimes they think that their ultimate aim of the life is to take care of the family, is to get married, having kids, and after that, of course, it's a personal choice. I'm not like denying that too, but again, this is how the identity is created. The creation or the narrative structure of cinema influences a lot some audience sometimes. So I'm just saying, it's not the generalized thing, it's not the real thing. Of course, the criticism of this theory says that audience is not passive all the time, because not everybody, people are different. Some people do have the critical thinking ability, and they perceive cinema as cinema, not as reality. You cannot say that the whole violence happening in the society is highly influenced by cinema. It is not true all the time. Sometimes it happens. It is completely up to a person's intellectual capacity and critical thinking ability. If someone is like educated enough, if someone is having the critical thinking ability, of course that person perceives cinema as a mediated reality, or a construction of it is a constructed story. That's it for them. They don't take it as more serious or real. They will be having, the cinema life is something different and the real life is something different. They can do this demarcation between this real and real. So one of the criticism to this theory is completely saying that cinema, the whole technological setup of cinema, is making the ideology as real. Whatever they are talking about is real, but it is not always like that. So one of the criticism to this theories talks about audience is not passive all the time. They do have the critical thinking ability, and they can read between the lines, they can understand it as real. So that's one of the criticism to this theory. And another theory is like, again, it generalizes the spectator experiences, ignoring cultural, historical and individual differences. Of course, cultural differences are there, individual differences are there. People, their intellectual capacity is different from one to another. So they can perceive it as real, not as real all the time. And of course, this theory neglects the genre, the narrative variation and the viewer agency. In general, the major criticism to the theory is it assumes audience as passive, not active, but it's not possible all the time, because each and every intellectual is different, and the effect the cinema creates on one individual is different from other, because it completely up to the person's intellectual capacity and critical thinking ability. I hope you understood the basics of apparatus theory. Tomorrow we will continue with the in-depth analysis of this apparatus theory, and then later we will go to the screen theory, which is again one of the contemporary film theories. We have to study as part of our syllabus film theories. Thank you.